Well Rooted is brought to you by Gerard and Associates CPAs. With locations throughout Los Angeles, Gerard and Associates has been guiding entrepreneurs and creatives towards realizing their dreams for over 20 years. Discover how they can support your vision at gerardcpa.com. Hey, it's Haneen, and I'm back with another episode of Well Rooted. Today, I am joined by the manifestation queen, Nadia Khaled. Uh, this is a really great episode. It's very inspirational. Nadia made headlines a while back when she was fired from her job, buried in debt, and she turned all of that around and ended up building a six-figure business. She spoke with us today about all of that and so much more. Please welcome Nadia Khaled to Well Rooted. Nadia Khaled, welcome to Well Rooted. It's a pleasure to have you today.
Thank you. Thank you. It's good to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. There's so much I want to cover with you. We were just chatting right before. But you are definitely the manifestation queen. I think you have a really good grasp of it and how to use it. So I want you to explain what manifestation is.
So, manifestation across the board. I mean, there's so many different ways to define it, but the way I like to think about it is it's really about energy, right? So, the energy that you're putting out into the world with your thoughts and emotions, meaning the most frequent thoughts and emotions that you're experiencing on a regular basis, you're attracting energy of the same frequency, right? So, if there's a certain limiting belief that you keep telling yourself over and over, for example, like, I'm so bad at remembering names, and it can be anything, but I just usually use that one because that's a really common one, right?
Mhm.
When you put that energy out there, you're going to start manifesting experiences where you actually forget people's names, not because you're actually bad at it, but because that's the energy that you've been putting out. So that's the energy that you're going to get back. So manifestation, again, is really just the correlation between what energy you're putting out and what you're getting back. And I think the beauty of knowing about it is that you can go from survival mode to just being in a victim mentality all the time of life is happening to you, to then going into a conscious creator mode where you're very aware, you have the accountability, and you know how to intentionally alter how you're thinking and feeling to align with what you actually want to experience. So that's how I would define it.
Okay, that's an excellent definition. Um, what, how are people like, how would you recommend someone open up and become open in a way that allows them to manifest correctly? Because I feel like sometimes people will say, well, I want to do this or I want this, but there's other like corners or aspects of their life that are very closed and they don't even realize that they've closed those avenues for themselves. Like they're just really not open to bringing in that energy into their life. So what are what do you notice like that's a common sort of trait in people who are having trouble manifesting properly and and what is something you recommend to someone in order to better the opportunity of manifestation and make it more of a straight path?
Great question. So where I would start with that is I think the thing you have to remember is that the word manifestation only refers to like more of the new age spirituality way of thinking about things. But in reality, there's so many different angles, like religion, for example. We have Islam that teaches us manifestation from the religious perspective. We have all these other major religions and other like forms of spirituality. But I think the right starting point for anyone is recognizing where your pain is in terms of what it is about your life that's just not really fitting. I think
Mm,
that's what the starting point for most people, right? Is like there's some, maybe it's a job that I'm working that's really just like sucking all the life out of me, or maybe it's a relationship, or maybe a string of relationships where I'm just like, it's so toxic and I'm not getting what I want, right? I think it's being able to look at those parts of your life where it does feel like the lid is kind of like closed on it,
mhm.
because that is kind of pointing you in the direction of what you're being called to manifest or how you're being called to kind of expand, right? So the most common thing that I see with people who are not really as open or kind of struggling with these kinds of things are it's actually that they don't really have what I call like a spiritual backbone, or they don't have a solid ideology to kind of anchor themselves to. Because, like I said, there's so many different angles of it, right? Like New Age spirituality is manifestation, but we have all these ancient religions and things that have been around for a really long time that have been teaching us the same exact things. And so whenever I notice that somebody's really struggling, I ask them the question of like, do you believe in any higher power? Do you believe in, in manifestation, there's the universe, there's the quantum field. In Islam, there's Allah, there's God, there's all of these different terms for it. But if you don't have an overarching concept of that you really can trust and believe in, it starts to feel really scary to put your faith in something that you can't really understand, or something that's like bigger than you, right? Your feet are planted a little too firmly onto the floor in
Mm.
a way where you're not really allowing yourself again to expand and to experience all the things that you were put on this earth to experience. So does that answer your question?
No, it absolutely does. And I'm really glad you brought up religion, specifically dua, because I think a lot of people in our community, I mean, this is a podcast tailored to the MENA community. So I think a lot of people will question that, and they'll be like, well, what's the difference between manifestation and dua? So what would your response to that be? Is it sort of like hand in hand? Is it almost the same thing?
I like to say it's the same exact thing, just literally using different words to describe it, right? Like I
Mm-hmm.
think of it as if it was a little gift inside of a gift box. Inside of the gift box is the truth. It's going to be the same regardless, but sometimes it's going to be wrapped in different packaging. Doesn't alter the message, doesn't alter the gift itself. It's still the same. It's just the way that it resonates more with you. Because if you think about it, right, when you've grown up in the context of Islam, you come from a Muslim family, you're a lot of the times like your entire concept of religion, or your entire concept of spirituality, is through the lens of religion. So we grow up hearing the word dua and nasib and qadar and all these, and tawakkul and all these things, but sometimes you actually have to discover it from a different lens to really truly understand what it means, and for it to really hit as hard, because there is also a lot of there's I mean, religious trauma is real, right? Some people have had really bad
Absolutely.
experiences within religion, which doesn't make religion invalid. It just means that there's sometimes it requires a little bit of a different door to enter through to be able to see it properly.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I would say it's the same thing. Like when you are manifesting something, you have a certain intention, a certain desire that you would like to experience. Making dua is the same exact thing. You're asking Allah for something with the full trust and the full faith that it's going to be given to you. So again, they're
Yeah.
very, very similar concepts across the board. It's the only nuance is just the way that they're described, and the cultural context varies a little bit as well.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. And just going back to what you said earlier about the energy exchange as well. I mean, even when you make dua, like they tell you, you really have to have that open heart, when you are praying and making dua, right? Like it is basically the same energy exchange.
Mhm.
Um, and going back to what you said earlier, also I've actually seen, like when you were talking about, having things closed off in your life, maybe it's like that career that's really just sort of suppressing your energy in some way, and because of that you're not able to really fulfill other aspects of your life the way that you want to. I kind of saw that play out in real life recently with someone close to me, where it felt like she was being held back in a lot of ways, like in her personal life and her career. And when one thing sort of fell into place and she just was open to that change, other things automatically fell into place right away as
Yeah.
well. Is that a common dynamic that you see in the line of work that you do?
Where like somebody opens their energy in one part of their life and then it just leaks into everything
Yeah.
else. Yeah.
Is that something that you see like a lot of?
All the time, all the time. So yeah, especially in my work with one-on-one coaching clients, that's something
Mm-hmm.
that is so, so common, where they'll have a breakthrough in one aspect of life. And because their belief system has completely changed in relation to that one thing, that's where it creates the rest of the change. There's something called the law of assumption, where it's anything that you believe to be true without needing evidence is always what ends up coming true. So whenever I'm working with a client and we have a certain limiting belief, and I kind of help them reframe it. Like I give them the spiel that they need to hear of like, well, you got to be able to open your mindset and think of it differently. They kind of have this like aha moment where they're like, oh my God, that makes so much sense. And then once that happens, I get a text or a call from them like the next week, and they're like, you're never gonna believe how many opportunities have literally fallen into my lap because of that. Like after that one session where we had that one breakthrough mentally, where suddenly all of your energy has just become unlocked and the doors are just opening from so many different directions. So that's, yes, definitely a very common thing that I see all the time.
That's incredible. That must be really rewarding on your part also, because it's like, oh, okay, I cracked it for you. I helped you get there. That must be like really
Totally.
rewarding to
It is
get to see
so
that in your
cool.
clients.
Yeah, because every time I have somebody walk through the door as a coaching client, like in that very first call, I'm sensing how much their energy is so low with certain things and they feel so stuck and so drained. Like it's like the light is so dim. And I can see even just from when they're telling me and venting about it, like I can literally see um the potential of like what is waiting for them on the other side if they just do the work and they just kind of like follow the path. And so it is extremely rewarding when we do start to dig into that layer by layer. And then every session they come and you can see their energy is a little lighter, their facial expression is a little happier. You know, there's like a
Mm-hmm.
certain glow about them that really only comes when you do the work of recognizing that you're the only thing that's in your way. There's nothing that's in your way besides the way that you're thinking about things. And it's magical seeing the internal and the external shift for them for sure.
It's amazing. What can someone expect if they were to become a client of yours? Walk us through that process.
So basically, what you would do is you would send in an application, answering a few questions about why you want to work with me. You know, what is it that you're wanting to manifest? What is it that you're wanting to change about yourself and your life? And then from there, you'll book a what's called a free clarity call with my onboarding specialist, who will meet with you, go through your application, see if you're a good fit. And then from there, if you are a good fit, you and I will meet for 1 hour sessions. It could be every week. It's usually a package that you'll have of certain of sessions, and you can kind of decide how often you want to meet. But usually it's weekly to every 2 weeks. And then within each session, I don't actually have like a formula or a template or a roadmap that I have for anybody. It is completely case by case because I really want to meet everybody where they are. And so you'll basically just vent to me and tell me everything that's weighing on you. Like I'll ask you certain questions just to kind of pinpoint like what's keeping you low. And then from there, I'll kind of help you. I'll use something called human design, which is basically, I don't know if you've ever heard of human
I
design or
have
like
heard
any of
of
that
that
stuff.
before. Yeah, explain that, please.
So human design is like a modern day combination of astrology, the Kabbalah, like a bunch of different systems and ways of understanding ourselves. And so it's based on you, everybody has their own human design map based on their birth time, day, and location. And so when I look at somebody's map, it's basically like an energetic blueprint of how they were designed to manifest, because it's not like a one size fits all where it's the same for everybody. Everybody has like a different strategy or a different way of unblocking their energy and getting into alignment with the things that they really want most. And so I usually look at their human design map, and literally just from the first like 10 minutes of me reading through it, I'm like, okay, so you're probably struggling with imposter syndrome and you feel like you can't have the things that you want because you're not good enough. And they're like, oh my God, that's exactly what it is. And I'm like, okay. So then from there, we'll kind of dig a little deeper and I'll give them very, very specific advice and reframes to help kind of get them through whatever is keeping them stuck. And then that's just kind of how every week, that's just how it is. You'll fill out like a vibe check form every time before we meet, just to kind of get a feel for where you're at. What have you applied? What's been working? What hasn't? And it's also really cool to be able to see the changes from each vibe check form where they're like, like I haven't really had any terrible experiences this week. Like I've really learned how to just kind of keep my energy reined in and things are going up. So yeah, that's basically, like, long story short, that's the whole process of working with me. Is it's Zoom calls where we really just get into what's keeping you stuck and how can we let that go and adopt a more open-minded mindset.
And how long does it typically take a client to sort of get to where they need to be, to where they're actually, in that right energy level to really
Totally.
pursue their goals?
So it's a case by case basis for sure, because it really depends on whether or not they are open and willing to
Mm.
take the advice and take the insights. But I will say I'm very fortunate to have attracted some really, really incredible clients. And I will honestly say to you, a lot of them experience a ginormous shift after the very first session. And sometimes I don't see them for like a month or two after that because they got everything they needed and now they're like, on a high. And then if they need me from there, they'll just kind of reach out. If there's a certain thing, maybe something happened that kept them stuck, they'll reach out to me. But generally speaking, it doesn't take more than 1 or 2 sessions to really see a big shift and a big breakthrough in their energy and in the things that are happening for them. So that's why I don't do like I don't do like 1 year. I know there's a lot of coaches that
Oh,
do like
wow.
kind of longer term packages, but I just
Okay.
don't feel like that's as necessary for my clients because they just get results so quickly that it's kind of like, after the second session, third session,
You-
you're already
You're
kind
like,
of where you
you
need to
can go
be.
be free in this world now.
Yeah, literally. I'm
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
and it's so funny because I get clients sometimes on their last session, they'll be like, oh my gosh, like I'm so scared. Like, can we just do a couple more? And I have to give them the spiel of like, you're good on your own, actually. You don't need me. Like, you got to be able to spread your
That's so
wings and
funny.
fly and you'll be
Yeah.
good. If it's sometime down the line you want coaching again, maybe we can revisit and talk about it, but you got to go, you know, do
Yeah.
you
Do you?
and do
Yeah,
your thing. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I mean, that's okay. It's such an interesting career path to take. How did you get into this?
So my original plan was actually to become a therapist because
Okay.
I've been very interested in psychology. I've always been the friend that you go to with for advice and for help. Um, and I would say I've always just throughout my life, emotional intelligence and emotional awareness has always been a very big part of my development. And so, yeah, my plan was to become a therapist. I essentially got my bachelor's degree in psychology, and then I got a job as a substance abuse counselor at the county that I worked at. So I was at a detox center actually, where I was working with people that had severe mental health illnesses, severe addictions. Like, I mean, it was just crazy, crazy work. And I was also enrolled in my master's at the time as well because I wanted to, again, be a therapist. So I was doing the clinical mental health counseling degree. And because I was in a work environment where, unfortunately, people that struggle with addiction are not always ready to help themselves or willing to help themselves. So you really get stuck in this place as an addictions counselor where you're like, I want to help you, but there's no work to be done if you're not willing to do that, which
Right.
is very sad. It just made me feel kind of unfulfilled with the work that I was doing and where I was at. And I really just had this deeper calling to help people. In the best way possible. So basically what I started doing was I turned to TikTok to make videos about stuff that I learned in psychology or books that I was reading about personal development, like just sharing that and putting that out there as a creative outlet. And even just making funny videos as well that just would go viral and just like comedy type stuff. And from there, one of the videos that I recorded at my job that was just a funny video with my coworkers actually ended up going so viral that the director of my job saw it and they called me into work and they just fired me. They were like, "You're done,"
Wow.
Yeah. So from there, I kind of had two options. I could either try to get back into the same field while I'm doing, my graduate degree so I could get my clinical hours and just keep following that path, which I was not doing well financially at all. Mentally, I was not really good in a good space either. Like I was in a ton of debt and I just wasn't making a lot of money. And so the other option was to just look at rejection as redirection and just give myself the space to fulfill a dream of mine, which was to create a business out of social media and just kind of do social media full time, work remotely, live wherever I wanted to live, kind of have the financial freedom to do what I wanted. And so from there, that's exactly what I did. I actually went in my manifestation journal and I wrote out exactly what I wanted in my first social media related income thing, which was at the time I wanted to be a social media manager, somebody that kind of helps people build their own social media platforms, because that's what I had done. And I wrote how many hours I wanted to work. I don't want I want to work with them, not for them, because I don't want to have a boss. I want to be my own boss. And so after I wrote all that stuff in my journal, a couple weeks later, I literally ended up getting a job offer where they were like, "Name your price. You are the boss. We
Wow.
just want your insights and your advice and stuff." And so, yeah, from there, it was like, "Oh, okay, cool. This is great money, very easy." Obviously, manifestation is very real. I just proved it to myself. And then from the videos that I kept posting about psychology and self-help and personal development, I had a couple people, and even manifestation actually, I had a couple people start leaving me comments being like, "Do you offer coaching for this? Because I would love to work with you." And I was like, "Oh, like I was going to be a therapist. It was going to take me a couple more years and a lot more money and a lot more time and energy to get to the point where I'm actually able to do that for people. But coaching isn't really a regulated thing. Like I could be a coach for anybody and kind of
Yeah.
start that from now." So that's what I did. I just started a coaching business. A couple months later, landed my first paid client. And then from there, it just kind of expanded. So I quit my master's at that point and I just focused on building the coaching business, which has
That's
done pretty
incredible. I
well.
mean, congratulations to you. A lot of
Thank you.
people would have taken that as a failure. They would have been really down on themselves. And for you to have just to trust yourself enough to have that pivot and be like, this is my calling. This is what I'm going to go with. That's
So
really admirable and a really great lesson.
I appreciate that. I will say, I think something that really helped fuel it for me was how embarrassed I was and how humiliated I felt of like you just being fired out of nowhere. It was just so embarrassing. So it was almost a sense of um, revenge where I was like, you
Mm.
know what? You fired me because of TikTok, and now I'm going to turn around and get rich off TikTok, and you're going to be sorry you ever did this. Which I mean, obviously they're not going to care that much because
Right.
who cares?
But
But for
hey,
me, in the back of
hey,
my
for
mind,
you, it feels great, right?
yeah, I was like, I have something to prove and I'm just going to do it. And I would literally visualize. This is so crazy. I don't know if I've ever talked about this, but when I was in that like era where I was like so fueled with vengeance of like, this is going to be my come up story. This is my villain origin story. This is going to be amazing.
Yeah.
I literally visualized getting a call from a coworker being like, "Hey, we saw you on the news of your story. Like, that's amazing." And a couple months after that, actually, my story ended up getting picked up by a major news outlet and
Oh,
it just kind of
wow.
wildfire. So my story about getting fired and then starting a 6-figure coaching business just kind of blew up. And I literally got, it was actually a text message I got from an old coworker at that job. And they were like, yeah, we saw the article about you on the computer, and we all kind of gathered around. We're like, oh my God, this is so crazy. And I was like, what? That's unreal. So even like, yeah, like manifesting very specific little scenarios like that
Yeah,
is also very real. So that was
that's
cool.
hilarious. What was the reason for the firing? Was it the TikTok, like the content of the TikTok, or was it the fact that
No,
you did it?
it was just proof that I was on my phone at work because I recorded it with my
Wow.
coworkers. So it was, I mean, if I really wanted to, I could probably take them to court and sue them for wrongful
Yeah, that's kind
termination,
of
but
crazy.
they really just did me a favor. So I'm like,
No,
no,
absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah, and you really like it seems like you're just really in tune with your intuition as well and with your gut. And
Mhm.
I think that kind of goes along with Islam as well because we kind of do that thing where it's like if something just comes easily, you go along with it, and we say like in Arabic like as a takas or بتصير takas, like you have to kind of like tibad, right? Like you have to kind of back off because it's just not for you, whatever it is. And it
Oh,
seems like things sort of fell into place for you in a way where it felt right.
mhm.
But I want to get into how you mentioned you were just very specific with your manifestation. Do you feel like that's an important detail to manifestation?
Great question. So, what I will say, I always talk about human design with this because I think where a lot of people do get tripped up is they think they have to be super specific and it kind
Mm-hmm.
of overwhelms them. Like, if they want to make a vision board or if they want to, think about what they want, they're like, I don't know what my dream job is. I don't know what the role is or what to apply for, they don't know those granular details. And what I always say is, number one, your human design map will tell you if you're a specific or non-specific manifester. Specific manifestors are typically people that do very easily visualize those details. It just kind of comes to them in like a vision or like they get like a download and it's just very clear. Whereas non-specific manifestors, which is what most people are, they don't really know the specific details. They're just in tune with the feeling. The feeling
Mm-hmm.
is enough. And then like the universe will kind of fill in the gaps, what I say of like, for example, I've had a bunch of clients that I've worked with that are like really wanting to manifest a new job, like their dream job, but they have no idea what it is. So I say, okay, so what is it that you do know from where you're standing about what you're aspiring to? Don't worry about job titles. Don't worry about job roles. On a feeling level, what do you want? And they say, okay, I want to be able to be my own boss, or maybe I really want to do creative work for a living because that feels fun and exciting. I don't know what type of creative work, but something creative where I'm not using, it's not logic. It's very kind of like subjective.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe I really want to be working with people. I love working with people. Again, context doesn't really matter. Whatever you know is enough from where you're standing. And if you can just put those details down, that's enough because you've already kind of created the energetic picture of it. When you see something that is the right thing, you will naturally you'll catch it and be like, oh, that's it. That's exactly actually the
Mm-hmm.
thing that I
Mm-hmm.
want. Maybe you'll get a job offer and they're telling you what it is. And it's like, yeah, oh my gosh, that's exactly what I wanted. So it's like, you don't have to be so specific where you're forcing yourself to come up with details that aren't clear to you yet, but you do have to have a general intention of like, what do you want to experience? What do you want to feel? What do you want the energy to be like when you're in it?
Yeah, feeling is so important. I will
Mhm.
say, and I'm not just saying this because I'm speaking with you, I did manifest this interview with you.
Really?
I did. So maybe it kind of coincides with your story in some ways. Like I gave up my career years ago to raise my kids. And
Okay.
I think I got to this point where they were like all going to school and I'm like, what am I gonna do now? Like I kind of help, my husband with some of his businesses, but I'm like, I've just always leaned more creative. And I'm
Mhm.
like, what do I put my energy into now? And then when I started sort of thinking of launching this podcast and the writing that I want to do, I'm like, well, let me just make a list of the people I want to hear from.
Mhm.
Your TikTok actually popped up one day, and I think it was right after it was early on after October 7th, and you were actually talking about Gaza, and I'm like, who is this? Like you were just very like you just radiate off the screen. And I'm like, okay, let me see what else she like posts about. And I just really loved your content. And I'm like, I added you to my list right away. And it's
Okay.
funny, and next week I actually have another interview with someone else that was on my list from like last
Nice.
year. So I feel
Okay.
like, I mean, maybe I didn't realize in that moment I was manifesting just by, keeping a list.
You
But
wrote it down.
I wrote it down, and I wasn't like, oh, what if? It was like, okay, one day I will.
Yeah. You just
Yeah.
kind of decide, you know what you want, and actually that's a really big thing too is writing it down takes it to a whole other level. Just the act of writing it out alone is such an intentional act of manifestation that a lot of the times you will notice the things that you've taken the time to put pen to paper and write out are usually the things that come true, because like you said, you put it down and then you said, I just know it's going to happen whenever it happens. So I'm also very honored that, you
Yeah,
manifested me being on your
I
podcast. That's amazing.
manifestation is so interesting, and I think it's now we have a word for it, like in mainstream society here in the West. But for so long, I feel like it has been, as you said, just through religions and through the history of how the world's evolved, it's been part of our society. But now
Totally.
I feel like it's just, just there's more of a hyperfixation on it for sure.
Well, and when you also think about it, right? Like, and this also aligns with Islam in a lot of ways too. Like, these are all concepts, like we said, this is in the Quran, this is in like, culturally, we've been talking about this for like ever.
Hmm.
But also, Islam originated so long ago. Society was different then, culture was different then, the way of thinking was different then. And so it doesn't make that logic any less real or true, but it's not going to resonate as much with people who like thousands and thousands of years later, where we're
Right.
living in an era of technology and science, and there's all these developments and all these advancements that they didn't have back then, but we have them now. So it kind of changes the way we analyze things and are able to like think through things. And so now we have the science even to back up all of the manifestation stuff. So there's no reason not to believe it. We have all the evidence we need to see that there is a correlation between how you're thinking and feeling and what you're experiencing in your reality, even down to something called the observer effect in quantum physics, where they were trying to figure out how does energy move and how do electrons decide to show up in one place or another. And as they were trying to like observe the behavior, what they found was the observer effect, which is that it's wherever somebody is paying attention to that the electrons come together. So it's like
Wow.
things like that, where it's like, again, we have now the science to understand it. And because of that, all of that terminology now speaks to us in a different way, and we're able to accept it and understand it better. So yeah.
I want
So
to shift gears into another topic that you're very knowledgeable about. I recently read an article that you were featured in Business Insider, I believe. Really great
mhm.
article. It talked about divine feminine energy. That's a phrase we hear a lot about these days, and I want you to explain what that is.
So I'm going to use the analogy that I always use when I am talking about this. And it's that you want to think of masculine energy and feminine energy as a mountain. So masculine energy is situated at the bottom of the mountain and feminine energy is situated at the top. And the reason is because masculine energy is all about the climb, right? And when I say masculine and feminine energy, it's not about men and women. Let's be very careful about that. Everybody has masculine and feminine energy within themselves, but it's about the balance of both, right? So men are going to lean more towards masculine energy, and usually women are going to lean more towards feminine, but we all of us have both of them within us. So anyways, when it comes to masculine energy being situated at the bottom of the mountain, the reason why it's at the bottom is because masculine energy is about the climb, right? It's about, setting goals, going from point A to point B and strategizing how you're going to get there, right? It's about putting in the work, because masculine energy is all about earning your value. It's earning your worth, right? And that's why men love to work, and that's why men have so much energy to get stuff done, even down to their biology, right? Men have the same 24-hour hormone cycle. They wake up every day with the same amount of energy. So naturally, it makes sense when you're a man to be more in that masculine energy, where you're constantly working, you're strategizing, you're using logic, you're, putting in the work. So that's typically how men manifest in a broader sense. Now, feminine energy is actually situated at the top of the mountain, because feminine energy is all about knowing and trusting in your worth that you already have. So women are basically born with inherent value. Feminine energy has inherent value just by being. They don't have to do, right? And the thing for women, or the feminine energy, is it's not about working more or doing more or feeling like you have to prove yourself. It's about remembering that you're already at the top of that mountain. You have that inherent value. And if you can
Mm-hmm.
just allow yourself to sit in that and enjoy that, and also um, allow yourself to trust fall off the side of the mountain, knowing that the masculine is going to catch you. The masculine could be a man, it could be Allah, it could be the universe. Masculine energy is a bunch of different things, right? Right. But it's about allowing yourself to fall off the side of that mountain, knowing that you are going to be caught. And so when you look at it in that way, right, when I'm working with a lot of my female clients, usually the issue is that they're so in their masculine energy where they feel like they have to work their ass off for literally everything. And if they're not proving themselves, if they want to manifest something, but they don't have the plan of how they're going to get there yet, or they don't, they feel like they haven't really been working towards it enough, that's the thing that kind of throws it off. Because as women, our biology, our hormone cycle is every 28 days, which means we're dealing with different energies on a week to week basis, right? You have your follicular phase right after you finish your period.
Right.
That's like your internal springtime. You got all this energy to get stuff done. But then you have your luteal phase, which is like your internal fall season, which is where things slow down. Then you have your menstrual phase. It's the winter. You don't have any energy to work with. You're resting a lot. So again, I say this because you're, as a woman, you're not biologically engineered to work your ass off all the time and hustle. That's not how you're supposed to attract things or make things happen. You manifest by raising your self-value and your self-concept and realizing I already have everything within me and I literally just have to believe in it and allow Allah, the universe, God, to bring me the things that I want, knowing that they're going to come in the perfect timing for me without, again, feeling like I have to prove myself. So that's kind of the difference, I would say, mainly between masculine and feminine energy, specifically with how it relates to manifestation.
That makes so much sense. I mean, that's so helpful, I think, especially as a woman to hear. It kind of takes some pressure off. Um, how do we tap into that feminine energy?
So it's a case by case basis for everybody. But what I would say is um, start to notice, what do you do when you feel really tired? Do you push yourself to work harder or do you honor your body's need for rest? If your intuition is saying something is not for you, but logically you're using more logic than the intuition, you're like, well, it doesn't really make sense on paper to make this decision. I'm just going to go with what makes sense. That's you not being in your feminine energy as much. It's also about trusting your body's wisdom, trusting your intuition. Again, honoring your body's need for rest and not overworking yourself or feeling like there's more that needs to be done. Instead, it's about switching into this energy of, I've done everything that needs to be done. When there is something for me to be do, it will be clear and it will feel really good to me to do it. But for the time being, I'm going to learn how to take care of myself and my needs. And like when I'm meeting with my coaching clients, for example, every single one of them, I have to have the feminine energy spiel because they are, like I said, a lot of them are operating in their masculine energy, not a very healthy way at all. And so I have to kind of teach them, okay, well, do you know how to take care of yourself? Do you make time for yourself, or are you constantly pouring out of your own cup to fill somebody else's? Right? The shadow side of feminine energy, when it's like not really balanced, is it's called the martyr. Right? This is why a lot of women end up in spaces where they're self-sacrificing because they just are
Mhm.
giving, 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 and they're not holding enough space for themselves to be at the top of the mountain. So they're inadvertently putting themselves at the bottom and climbing, climbing for everybody else. But it's like you have to be able to know when it's time to put yourself at the top of the mountain and like how to actually be able to do that, because it is different for everyone, right?
Right.
Maybe for you, that's going to be when I notice myself getting really tired with work. I'm not going to keep forcing myself to do it. I'm going to take a break and remove myself and go get a massage or go for a walk or do the things that allow me to recharge my batteries.
Hmm.
And just kind of making sure I'm maintaining that level for myself where I'm never in a space where I'm getting so depleted, or even in like your relationships, for example, right? Like, what are the things that you're tolerating from your partner that you know that you don't deserve, but you're putting your own needs on the back burner because you're afraid of losing them, or you're afraid that if you don't
Mm.
have this person, then who might, I'm not going to have anybody. So it's like
Right.
also that trust as well, knowing to honor your boundaries and knowing that you don't really need anyone or anything to keep you solid because Allah or the universe or God will always have your back regardless. So that's another big thing too.
Okay, that's great. And I think also going off of that, I feel like there are a lot of women these days. I know like the bar is like super low for men in general, from what I've heard from my single friends. And I think women are the ones that are achieving and they're the ones that are really the go-getters now. And they're having to tap into that masculine energy. So for them, when it's like they're looking for a partner, I feel like it's harder for them to kind of get into like that feminine energy to attract the masculine energy, right?
Totally. It can be so difficult because, like we said, I mean, everybody has a balance of both within them. And when you're a high achieving, high performing woman, you naturally have a lot of innate masculine energy that you know how to channel properly. And yeah, when you are in that space, it can be difficult to kind of switch modes if you're not intentional. And that is where a lot of women do end up in this space where they feel like, there's no good guys out there that can meet me where I
Hmm.
am. But it's really about, if you learn how to embody feminine energy, by default, you will attract a man that's in his healthy masculine. But if you as a woman are too much in your masculine energy, you're going to attract a woman that's in his feminine. And this is where we see a lot of situations where it's like, the guy wants to be treated as the prize, or it's like he doesn't really want to put in the effort, or he's not really wanting to
Right.
commit or whatever, right? As the woman, you've probably attracted that dynamic because you are too much in your masculine energy. So now you have a guy that's on the complete opposite end of that, right? Like he wants you to roll out the red carpet for him
Right.
instead of the other way around. So it's really about becoming the feminine energy within yourself. And then naturally you'll attract a partner that's a divine counterpart to that.
That's a great explanation. Let's talk about Limitless, your
Mhm.
podcast. I was just
Yes.
on your Instagram right before this, and I was just going through a lot of your different talking points. Talk to us
Mhm.
about the podcast and where that came from, and sort of what you cover on the show.
Yeah, so we called it Limitless with Nadia because it's really all about everything I preach about, which is just how to remove any of the self-imposed limitations that you've put upon yourself that are preventing you from creating your dream life, which is what we all came here to do. And so we cover a lot of different angles. We have a lot of different guests, whether it's using astrology, how to kind of like understand your soul purpose or understand your karma through astrology so that you can kind of work through that. Or maybe it's about learning how to like align your rituals every day to program your subconscious mind properly, or maybe it's about how to get more into your feminine energy in your relationships. There's like lots
Mhm.
of different angles that we cover, but it's mainly just about how can we remove all of the things that are keeping you in a certain space so that you can tap into that infinite potential and create the reality of your dreams. So that's kind of where everything started, and it's just been such a blast having lots of different guests. And now we did the reboot, and we're in person now, whereas it used to be remote. So we record in Miami, and we've been flying guests out here and there too, which has been so much fun and just such a dream come true. So yeah, it's great. I've really enjoyed that whole process.
That's amazing. I want to learn a little bit more about you. So if you don't mind sharing a little bit about your roots and sort of the atmosphere that you grew up in to give you such strong intuition and such a strong character as well.
Thank you so much. That means a lot. So I was born to two Lebanese parents in 1999, so I'm 26 years old. And my parents, so my mom immigrated here when she was 14 years old. My dad came when he was in his 20s. And a lot of my upbringing, one of my first languages was actually Arabic. So we spoke Arabic at home all the time. My grandmother also raised me, and she wore the hijab. So and was a very devout Muslim. So I grew up watching her pray 5 times a day. We went to the mosque all the time. I had private Quran lessons where I learned to read and write in Arabic and like read and recite the Quran and everything like that. So religion was definitely a very big part of my upbringing for sure, specifically because of my grandmother and the role she kind of played. But what I will say is quite interesting. Oh, actually, the other thing too that I should mention that's kind of important is that growing up, I went to all private Catholic schools, and I was often the
Mm.
only Muslim student, and well, besides my brother, in the entire student body and the whole population of kids that were there. That was a very interesting experience because I had Islam at home, which was like my identity, my roots. And then every day I would have to, or once a week, every week we would go to mass. Like I would go to church with these people. And obviously I would not partake in the
Right.
spiritual practices. Like I was just kind of an observer. But it's funny, my mom actually had to pay extra tuition for me because she didn't pay taxes, or she didn't pay like
Wow.
like church taxes or whatever. So like that was just so funny. But the quality of education was better there. So that's kind of just what she decided. But yeah, it was really interesting having um two completely different, right, quote unquote different
Right.
approaches to spirituality. I had Islam and I have Catholicism that I saw like up close. And it really kind of triggered the question for me throughout my life of like, is there a right or wrong way? Because I'm taught that anybody that doesn't believe what I believe is going to hell, if they
Mm.
don't. And it's like I had friends and I'm like, but these are such good people. Like, how
Yeah.
are these people going to go to hell? Like it just kind of
It's
put
a
a lot of those existential questions in my mind from a very young age. And I think I'm lucky enough and blessed enough to have a mother who is so open-minded and has studied world religions herself and just has kind of been able to zoom out and see the bigger picture of there is no black and white, one right or wrong way to go about things. It's just whatever resonates most with you. So because of that, I was able to really start looking at spirituality through these other lenses and like studying it on my own and kind of seeing what resonates and what doesn't. And again, a big part of it was my mom, because when I read something or see something that does not resonate with me and I'm like, I don't really like how that feels, I'm like, I
mm.
don't have to I don't have to subscribe to that. Like I don't feel the need to put myself in a box where I tightly adhere to one ideology or one school of thought,
Mm-hmm.
because everything is holistic to me now. Like I've seen so many like ranges of spiritual backgrounds and things, and it's like it really just is a case by case basis. Whatever resonates with you is what resonates with you, and what resonates with me, and that's enough. So like again, if I read a certain like quote or something where I'm just like, I don't know if God would really, think or put things out in this way. Like I don't, things like that. And I'm like, okay, well then I can kind of let go of that. So that was a really big part of it. I love Islam and I think it is such a beautiful religion, as with many other religions. I think there's so much light in all of it. But yeah, I think my upbringing has definitely encouraged me to take everything with a grain of salt and practice my own discernment of what resonates with me and how can I let go of anything that doesn't, and allow that to kind of be okay. So that's kind of like how my upbringing has influenced how I show up now and what I do now. And so yeah, that's kind of my whole background story.
Oh, I love that.
Mhm.
Are there aspects of like Lebanese culture that you think are really unique and maybe add to what you're doing?
Totally. So it's so funny because I was actually thinking about this the other day of how Lebanese women apparently have, I guess, a certain reputation of being very
Hot.
strong-minded and having a very like
Oh.
upfront in your face kind of
Yeah,
energy,
yeah,
which is new
yeah.
to me because I mean, as somebody who grew up Lebanese, it's just only something you find out when you hear other people talk about it. So I think that definitely has played a role. I was also raised by a single mother, a single Lebanese mother who's has a very, very strong character. But yeah, I do definitely think like the way I show up and my like authenticity, my conviction, like, the things that make me who I am on a personality level definitely have so much to do with being Lebanese. Like, um, and also like valuing education as well as another big one. The specific area in Lebanon that I'm from in the south is they're so big on education and philosophy and like expanding your mind. And I definitely resonate with a lot of that as well. So that, and I think also Lebanese culture is so outgoing, which I
Mm-hmm.
love and adore. It's just so easy for
Yeah.
us to connect with anyone because we're just so willing to, um, again, like expand our borders and not feel so
Right.
almost tribal about things.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
I know people who are there right now who are, like just flew out recently. And I think that is a testament to Lebanese are well known for just having that spirit of we don't really care. Like we're just gonna do us regardless.
yeah,
We're
yeah,
gonna keep
exactly. It's a
living
very
life.
carefree. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. No,
totally.
I mean in the best way, obviously. Not like it's a very great example of how I think all of us should maybe operate as well. The rest of
Totally.
the Middle East is a little bit more serious in their approach to
Yeah,
things, so maybe we should lighten up. But no, that's a great topic. And I was raised by a single Palestinian mother, so I definitely feel you. I feel like it's built really great confidence and character in me. And it
totally.
kind of like, I guess seeing an immigrant Arab woman having to find her own way and stand on her own 2 feet is just really I don't know. I feel like I'm gonna keep reinventing myself like in some capacity like forever. Like I don't really see myself not doing that. And I think having a strong mother like that just really set the tone.
Totally. I saw this quote the other day of I always saw my mother struggling, but I never saw her give up. And
Oh,
that's a huge one.
absolutely.
Like being raised by a mom that will not take no for an answer, that even through the pain, through the struggle, through the hard stuff, like she's always figuring out a way to make it work. That's definitely a big bonus of being raised by a strong single mother for sure. I commend both of our moms for that. And anybody
Absolutely.
listening that was raised by a single mom, kudos
Yeah.
to your mama because she's a tough one.
No, for sure. For sure. That's a great point.
Mhm.
Um, okay, so let's get into content creation really well because I know a lot of people, especially right now, are struggling with it. It feels like everything's like since January, like the algorithm's been a little off. I think there's a
Yeah.
lot more people that are trying to get into content creation, and it just
Mhm.
doesn't seem as easy as maybe it was at one time.
Mhm.
Um, like what how did you get started? And I'm sure that was earlier, right? Like that was when did you get started into content
I would say
creation? And
3, 4 years ago.
3 4 years ago. Okay, so like kind of at its prime, especially with TikTok, right?
During COVID, especially too. Everybody was
Yeah,
online. It was a whole thing. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah. And how did you get started? Like what was some of your first material?
So the first the first thing videos I started making were just funny, like voiceover, like lip syncing videos, just like making jokes and stuff like that. But I think because I get this question a lot, right? Of like, how do you be successful in social media and content creation? How do you make content that performs really well? And like,
Mhm.
I think the advice that I hear people saying the most is like fully related to strategy, right? Like, how long are your videos? What's your hook? You
Mm.
know, what time are you posting them? What hashtags are you using? What's your caption? And those are all great, but I think fundamentally it's about the energy that you're putting into your content creation. And I think the reason why my videos consistently perform well, but especially at the beginning, is because I wasn't putting any pressure or expectations around, you know, how it should perform or what, okay, how am I going to make sure this does well or what should I do? It was purely creative instincts of like, if I felt like making something because it felt fun and exciting to me, I'm just going to experiment with it, play around with it. And when I feel good about it, I'm just going to post it. Like, I'm not going to really think twice. And so I think that's why I've been able to build the platform that I have and attract the following that I have and monetized it, is because that's always my energy with anything. Like, I don't like to put too much pressure around it, because that attachment to the outcome like ruins all of the energy behind it. And that's the important thing, right? Like, you have to pay attention to the whole energetics of it, of when you're making a video and you're so attached to the outcome and you're overthinking everything and you're spending forever editing and thinking about the concept and scripting things out and using all these strategies. If your energy isn't aligned and you're not actually confident or feeling good about it, your audience subconsciously picks up on that energy and it repels. That's what makes people want to keep scrolling, is that there's
Mhm.
no authentic, creative, aligned energy behind it. Whereas again, if you're just approaching it from a space of like, how can I have fun with this? How can I see this as like a creative outlet? And over time, as you start to do it and just experiment, you will naturally develop an intuitive edge of what works and what doesn't, what flops and what performs well, what brings in followers and what doesn't. And you just kind of get to roll with that. But I think people get too stuck in their heads at the beginning, and that's what sabotages their success. Like, I have a bunch of clients that'll be like, okay, like, I want to start a coaching page. Like, should I make a new page? Like, what should the at name be? Like, you know, should I whatever? And I'm like, you've already lost the plot by asking me these questions, because the whole point is just to have like, just make content, see what sticks and see what doesn't stick. I didn't know at the very beginning of my content creation career that I was going to be a coach. I was just putting things out there for shits and giggles.
Mhm.
And I put stuff that I was passionate about, like, you know, the stuff I was learning about in books and psychology. And somebody asked me about coaching, and then that kind of lit up from there. That's kind of how the path sort of started appearing. But if I had started from the perspective of, I'm going to start a coaching business and make coaching content, like, that would have had a completely different result, because it's just so attached and so many heavy expectations with it.
Mhm.
Whereas again, if you just experiment with it and just make it about having fun, the way to grow followers and the way to make money and the way, you know, what you should be doing will, as you walk, that path will continue to appear. But you have to take those steps first. You know, you can't just get stuck with making a million Excel sheets about brainstorming your content strategy and your pillars and all that jazz.
I
So,
think people also get scared about posting and it flopping.
yeah.
And I think you just have to like take some of that, you know, caring out of it, right? You just have to, like, as you said, have fun with it.
Have fun with it. The way I like to explain that is like, you have a child's mindset when it comes to creativity, and then you have an adult's mindset. And an adult's mindset is not very conducive to creativity, because adults think about rules and obligations and societal pressures and expectations. They care a lot about how they're being perceived by other people. So they really want to make sure that this, you know, the strategy is going to be
Hmm.
so important, and logic. But the nature of creativity is that there's no rules, right? And if you think about
Right.
how a child approaches creating something, right? They're just having fun. They're just there to like, okay, I'm going to paint this picture or do this thing. And however it comes out, I love it. And I think it's so cool. And it's like, when you can approach it from that space of anything you create has inherent value, whether it performs not, or it's accepted by other people or not, doesn't really matter. When you like it and you create it, and I'm sorry, when you create it and you enjoy it and you like what you've made, that enough is enough for it to be successful. Like, you can't measure the success of it based on how it's being received at the beginning, because then you're always going to be in a state of like people pleasing, of like,
Hmm.
what's gonna do well and what are people gonna like and accept in me. But it's like, you know, that mindset has to go. It just has to be about, how can I allow myself to have fun with this and create something that didn't exist before and enjoy. Like, all of the videos that I make and that I post, like after I make it and I post it, I just sit there and rewatch it over and over because I love it so much. You
Yeah,
know, it's
yeah.
like whereas before it'd be kind of like, oh my God, what are people thinking? But now I'm like, man, I think this is cool. I like it. So if you can have
Yeah.
that mentality, you're golden.
That's a really good thought to have because it is kind of out there, right? Like once you put it out there, it's out there. So you have to be willing to want to watch it, your own video or your own TikTok
Yeah,
several times and always come back to it and still enjoy
like it.
watching it. Yeah, and like it. That's a really good
Or
point.
like, yeah, or like when people, something I'm always noticing is people hiding their like count like on Instagram. And
I
I'm
hate
like, that's a
that.
telltale sign, huh?
Yeah. I personally hate that.
I think it's well, it's not even it's just it's like the only reason you would hide your like counts is because you think the amount of likes that you get is something embarrassing or that you
Right.
don't want people to know. Whereas like if you have the mentality of I don't care how many people like it because I like it and my like is the only like one that really matters, then like you know a video or a post could flop with like 10 or 15 or 20 likes, but it doesn't matter because you've already given it that inherent value, you know?
Yeah.
So if you are wanting to grow your social media pages, you're listening to this and you have your like count hidden, you better turn that off right now and you better stop, not care anymore.
Yeah, it's pretty badass not to care too.
Yeah, for real. Like I
Yeah.
don't need your approval. I don't need your stamp of validation on this. I like it. That's enough for me. So I'm gonna
Yeah,
keep going with it.
exactly. I can tell you have fun with your content because you have some really funny videos too. You do really great impressions.
Thank you. Yes.
Where did you learn to do that?
So it's so funny actually because for my whole life, I've always loved mimicking, like mimicking sounds or mimicking people. Like if I'm talking to somebody that has an accent, I'm not even doing it on purpose, but I'll start speaking back to them in their own
That's so
accent.
funny.
Just because like I love like playing around with the tonality and like the voice, like you know, like
Hmm.
pitches and just like trying to get it exactly how I hear it. But it's a very like what's it called like an autonomous process like I'm not really thinking about it it just kind of like happens so like with friend and like I like to study people's mannerisms and like how they're like if I'm watching a TV show about French people like Emily in Paris was one of them like I'm paying attention to like the French ladies like you know her posture and her body language and I'm just kind of like registering that and that just becomes part of the archetype and then I can just kind of bring that out whenever I need to so I almost create like alter egos out of characters or accents or impressions that kind of like leave an impact on me and I'm kind of like Judge Judy for example I watched so
Oh,
so much
I
Judge
saw your Judge Judy post earlier today.
Yes, that one is so much fun. So it's like she speaks obviously in a heavy New York accent.
Hmm.
And so throughout my whole life, and I didn't even realize this is where it was coming from, but throughout my whole life, I would have this like alter ego where I'm like, what are you talking about? Don't talk to me like that. Like it's like a lot of attitude and sass. And I realized it was literally just Judge Judy. Like watching her throughout my life, I was subconsciously registering all of her demeanors and just kind of letting them come out when they felt like it. So
No, that's hilarious. Like that's great because you give so much insight like in your content. It's very informational and it gives a lot of value, but getting to mix it in with that side of you is really interesting and I think really what draws people to you as well. Like just to see you have like this multi-dimensional personality is really it's fun.
thank you. Yeah, it's I've definitely had to get to a point where I am more comfortable with that because before it was exclusively coaching style or like psychology or like giving value type of content. But then when I got in my feminine energy of like my personality is enough, like me just being me
Yeah.
is enough to do well and connect to people and leave an impact. That's why I started making that content and it started doing really well. So yeah, that was also a mindset shift for me too.
When did you like when you pivoted into coaching, like what did you know that there were careers that were kind of set in coaching that you could just sort of become a coach of anything? Or like did you know of that? Because I have a friend who she's an attorney and she specializes in coaches. And I remember
Oh,
having a yeah, and her brand is called Coaches and Company if you ever want to look into it. But
okay.
she's I remember having a conversation with her and I was like, "What are you talking about?" And she's like, "No, no, anyone can be a coach of anything." Like it's really interesting. And I've kind of been watching this rise of coaching. How did you kind of get into that mindset where you were like, I actually we already know like you're an expert in manifestation, but to really build a business and a brand off of you know, giving coaching and giving that service.
That's a great question, actually, because I know a lot of people that are thinking about coaching that think they have to get all these certifications and
Mm-hmm.
all these like you know educational approval that they're good enough to be a coach in that particular subject. But personally, I think what's made me successful as a coach is that I have, number one, always followed my authentic urge of whatever I wanted to learn about. Like if I'm curious about something, I will dive right into it. I will read about it. I will research about it from a space of authentic curiosity. And
Hmm.
from there, I will naturally start to pick it up and it'll just become part of me, right? Like it'll become part of what I know and what I'm able to kind of teach people about. I never force myself to engage with any theoretical approach that does not personally resonate with me. It's literally specifically what I love, which is again like psychology. I have astrology, I have human design. These are all systems that I've learned intuitively just because I was interested in it and allowed myself to like fall into the rabbit hole. And that's where I got all the information that I needed to then turn around and teach it to other people. So it's not like I ever came from this approach of if I want to be a coach, I have to choose a lane and it has to be one specific thing that I'm helping with. It's kind of like I make content about whatever I feel lit up by, whether it's astrology, whether any of those buckets that I've kind of created that I really enjoy. And whoever resonates with any piece of it, they will come to me and, they need help with something. I will apply what I know as I see fit for their particular situation. So
Okay.
again, it's not like I really put myself in a box of like, okay, well, this person needs like this. So I'm going to do, it's just like, again, I create content based on whatever it is lights me up in the moment. And then when people come to me, I'm able to just help them with the intuitive knowledge base that I've kind of created for myself. And that ends up being very impactful for them as well.
Okay, that's great. That's great to hear. So, I mean, yeah, that's amazing. Honestly, like whenever I think of like kind of I keep going back to your story of getting fired in my head and I'm just like, wow, she's like to have built this is a great accomplishment. Like you should be really I'm sure you are proud of yourself because you're so in your energy, but I hope you are. What
Yeah, it's definitely a really cool come up story to have of like I got fired, but then I turned it into something great. And I think it's just a lesson for everybody else of sometimes the only thing standing between you and the life that you are dreaming of is just one leap of faith. It's just one risk. It's one thing where you don't know exactly where or how it's going to land,
mhm.
but you just know that it's going to go in the right direction. So if you just do that, everything else will kind of come together on its own.
What's one thing someone listening could do to help work towards success? Like what's one thing that they could start doing today that will help them work towards a goal?
That's a great question.
It's very
I would
vague in
say,
general, but like
no,
just
that's let me think about this. So, if you're listening to this, and it kind of depends on what point in your journey that you're on, right? Like how much do you know or how much are you awakened to versus how much. But I think in general, really learning how to trust yourself, meaning whatever is happening in your life right now that is not aligning with you, whether it makes sense on paper or not, you got to be able to trust what's happening in here, right? Like, again, if it's a job or if it's a relationship, makes sense on paper. Maybe you're making the money, right? It's bringing in the income that you want, but like something about it just like isn't, it's not sitting right with you. Start learning how to follow that and lean into that and ask yourself the question of if I knew anything was possible, if I knew there was no limitations, if I knew I had a magic wand and when I wave this magic wand, boom, in a few months or a few years from now, I'm going to have exactly what I want. What would I be aspiring towards? What would I ask for? What would
mhm,
I, start taking seriously? Because I knew that there was a plausible that I knew that there was a way for sure that it was going to happen. Because I think the thing that also keeps a lot of people stuck is if they don't know how something is going to happen, if they don't have that plan in place, if they're in that masculine energy too much, where it's like, okay, if I can't see a way to get there, I'm not going to believe in it. That deters you from opening yourself up to the things that you really do truly want in life. Because the secret is that you don't actually have to know how at the beginning, right? Like we tend to think that if our logical mind isn't on the same page where it knows exactly what steps we need to take, then it's not worth it, right? We're taught that way from a very young age. We live in a very capitalistic society. You want to get that job, you better have that degree, you better have the clinical hours, and you better have one, two, and three done to get there. Right. So it almost seems counterintuitive at first, where it's like, if I want this goal, but I don't know how I'm going to achieve it, I'm just an idiot for taking
right.
that seriously. But it's like, no, no, this is your, if you're listening to this and you've been thinking about those kinds of things, this is where you're at. You need to let go of the how because it's not your responsibility right now, right? You, as soon as you take something seriously in terms of, I know that this is possible and it will inevitably happen, like you did when you wrote my name on that list and you said, I just know it's going to happen, right?
Mhm.
You can let it go from there and not stress yourself out with the how. And you can also learn how to follow your intuitive nudges. What ends up happening is things will start to come together. Opportunities will start to fall into your lap. And if you just go in with the flow of what feels right, you're going to be, without even realizing it, opening all these doors that are coming in front of you and walking through every single one until you look around and you're like, oh my God, I'm literally living my dream life. Right. But you don't have to know the how. You don't have to have those specifics. Just start from the perspective of, if I could be delusional and manifest anything I wanted, what would I change about my circumstances, and how can I just start with the feeling of what it would be like to live in it and the excitement of that without having to map out the how, just trusting that the how will find me in the right timing and just kind of going from there. That's what I would say would be
That's
the good
great
stuff.
advice. That's really great advice. And I always like to wrap up, because I do love manifestation as well. I like to wrap up with the same question for every guest. If we were to have the same discussion in 5 years and I were to ask you, Nadia, what are you up to? What would you tell me?
Oh, I would tell you that I have my own TV show.
Absolutely. I
So
was
whether
hoping for that response actually. I wanted to see if you were going to go that route. Okay.
yeah, I think that's always been a dream of mine, is being a host of whether it's a talk show or a reality show or whatever, just having something where I get to host it and connect with people. So that we'll check back in a few
We'll check
years and
back
see where
in.
we're at with that.
And we might be watching your show by then too. So I'm excited to see what happens.
Yes,
Well,
likewise.
this was a great conversation. I'm so grateful for you and for you taking the time to speak with me today. I wish you the best of luck, inshallah, and everything to come for you. I know it's going to be great. And where can people find you and follow along in your journey?
Yeah, so you can follow me on Instagram or TikTok. My at name is at Nadia, Nadia dot Khaled, Khaledd, on both platforms. And also on the Limitless podcast page if you want to keep up with the podcast content. And yeah, from there, again, also thank you so much. I've really enjoyed being interviewed by you. This was an amazing conversation, and thank you for sharing your platform with me. I hope your
Oh,
audience got exactly what they needed out of it.
I'm sure they did. This was so insightful. Thank you very much and have a
For
great day.
you too.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Well Rooted. If you enjoyed today's episode and felt it brought you value, please subscribe, leave a comment, give us a like, and a review. This episode of Well Rooted has been brought to you by Gerard Associates CPAs. With locations across all of Los Angeles, Gerard Associates has been helping entrepreneurs and creatives make their dreams come true for over 2 decades. Go to gerardcpa.com to learn more. This is Haneen, and we are all well rooted.